Amid scrutiny over a boat strike that happened on the Caribbean Sea on September 2nd, exactly 3 months ago, that left 2 men alive before a second strike was ordered, killing both of those men. Some lawmakers say that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, quote, committed a war crime by ordering that second strike, but the War Secretary denies ordering that strike, saying that he wasn't there and it was rather Admiral Frank Bradley who ordered it. Hegseth also defends Bradley for his choice, saying that the Pentagon will always, quote, have the backs of its commanders. Take a look.
I have empowered them to make that call. Now, the first couple of strikes, as you would, as any leader would want, you want to own that responsibility. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all.
President Trump also doubles down on the effectiveness of these strikes, saying that they save hundreds of thousands of American lives. He also adds that if necessary, the U.S. will also add land strikes to the sea strikes that they've already been using, and that land strikes wouldn't be limited to Venezuela, but rather any country that is bringing illicit drugs into the U.S. And the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, says that the Pentagon strikes have only just begun. Take a look.
As I've said, I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. We're defeating narco terrorists, and we're standing.
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%. And I don't know who the 9% is.
I'm not sure either, sir.
But down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations.
This is coming as President Trump confirms that he spoke with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro over the weekend, although he did not say what they discussed in that call. And last week, the Trump administration also designated formally Maduro and allies of his government as members of a foreign terrorist organization. Don, back to you.
All right, Mari, thank you. Drug traffickers in Mexico, Colombia, and Venezuela are scrambling after China says it stopped exporting fentanyl precursor chemicals. That's according to FBI Director Kash Patel, who tells our sister media, the Epoch Times, that the threat of tariffs is keeping the Chinese regime in check. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
When we surveil and monitor and investigate these folks, we see that they are complaining about not having the necessary ingredients and mechanics to make fentanyl. That is an immediate impact that they haven't complained about in years.
FBI Director Kash Patel says drug traffickers in South America are struggling to find the chemicals used to make fentanyl after the supply from China has run dry. Last month, China issued export restrictions on 13 fentanyl precursor chemicals as part of the recent U.S.-China trade deal. Patel says that this leaves cartels with no other alternatives to produce the deadly opioid.
And that pipeline being shut off is forcing drug traffickers to scramble, which we're seeing, for alternatives. And here's the good news. They know and we know there aren't any. That's why we came up with this list.
As part of the U.S.-China trade deal, President Trump lowered the fentanyl tariff on China from 20% to 10%. And Patel says that this gives the U.S. tariff leverage over China so that they can uphold their end of the deal.
The Chinese Communist Party has not lived up to its promises, whether written or verbal. How can you be so sure that this agreement will be honored by the other side?
Because the Chinese government wants additional tariff relief and that tariff relief to maintain, they are going to have to come to the table and continuously show the results with us And if there isn't, or they violate that agreement on this particular issue, they know the consequences from the president are going to be severe in terms of tariffs and other matters.
In another development, European companies are increasingly moving their sourcing out of China due to China's export controls. That's according to a new survey by the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China released on Monday. The group's president says in a statement, China's export controls have increased the uncertainty felt by European businesses operating in the country, with companies facing risks of production slowdowns or even stoppages. Out of over 130 companies, more than a third say they plan to work with suppliers outside of China, while most say they're not sure how to respond to China's export controls. In October, China expanded export restrictions on rare earths, batteries, and other equipment. Those export restrictions were placed on pause for 1 year as part of that trade deal between the U.S. and China, and that doesn't just apply to the U.S. markets, but expands into the European Union. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez was released from a U.S. prison yesterday. His wife said on